Welcome, everyone, to Session Spotlight. Here's your opportunity to see the leaders and hear about them talk about their classes. A great way to decide what you want to take next summer at Convergence 2024. Today, we have Katherine Buenger, Marcy Petrini, Nadine Sanders, Margaret Stump, Myra Chang Thompson, and Barbara Cabral. Now, if you haven't heard, there's a conference next summer. It's Convergence 2024. We're going to be in Wichita, Kansas. It's from July the 11th through the 17th. We've got marketplace, exhibits, the runway fashion show, which is the highlight of the week, keynote speakers, tours, and much, much more. And all of this you can have in just a few days' time. It's amazing. We're going to start this morning with Katherine Buenger. Katherine has a design your own Sami inspired cuff bracelet. It's a one-day workshop. It's on Saturday. Katherine, I want to hear more about this.
Okay. Hi there. I'm excited about this. Sami are the people from the northern Nordic countries known for reindeer herding. And they've been working with this tin thread, which is a fine wire made with pewter and 4% silver, and it's wrapped around a fine, the wire's wrapped around a fiber core. And it's a great malleable, bendable wire that's great for braiding. And the Sami people have used this wire for hundreds of years. They've decorated their costumes and their belongings with it. And then they started making bracelets. And they make them make the braids with the tin thread and then sew it onto reindeer leather. And I started working with those basic bracelets, and I just love working with this tin thread that I've developed all these other things. So I also do lots of necklaces and other bracelets, but this class, I'm going to have the students, it's a really fun class. I'm going to have the students design their own bracelet. So I'll teach them several different braids. They can incorporate leather cord and flat leather and beads to make an interesting cuff that will make a lovely bracelet. And I tend to wear, right now I'm only wearing one, but I often will wear 3 or 4 or 5 bracelets at a time. It's really kind of fun. Again, it's a fun class. There'll be lots of choices of colors. These are all the different leather colors I have that they can, and I have lots of button choices. They're not only reindeer antler buttons, but other buttons. I will bring all the supplies needed. That's included in the materials fee. They just come with their creativity, and we'll have a really fun day.
Now, this is listed as a beginner.
It is a beginner class.
Now picture me. I'm a beginner.
Okay.
So can I really do this?
Yeah, you really can. I've taught this class, I think 100 times now, at least the basic bracelet. And every time I teach, I change my lesson plan. I come up with new things. I have the students start braiding different braids with parachute cord. And then when I see they're doing it correctly, I move them on to the tin thread. And yeah, everyone should leave with a finished bracelet.
Wonderful. Now, do I have to bring a lot? You've got a $40 material fees. It sounds like that's mostly you, right?
Bring everything, and you just bring your creativity and willingness to have fun.
And patience.
Yeah.
This looks beautiful. Those are gorgeous.
Okay, thank you.
Now, you're going to be talking about another class later this month, right? That also uses tin thread?
It's another tin thread class, and like I said, I just love working with this tin thread, and I just keep coming up with new things to do. So I was at the Bead and Button show a few years ago and saw some stone donuts, and I thought, how can I incorporate that? And so that's going to be the class I'm going to talk about next Monday.
Okay, all right. Another rabbit hole, folks. Just what we want. Thank you so much, Katherine. I appreciate it. It's a one-day workshop. It's Saturday, July 13th. Next up, we have Marcy Petrini, Up and Down the Twill Shaft Escalator. Now, that's an interesting title. It's a 90-minute seminar, and it's Saturday afternoon. Hello, Marcy.
Hello, it's great to be here. I'm going to share my screen. And we'll get started. Okay, so you may have a 4-shaft loom and you're moving on to more, or you may have a 4-shaft loom and you see a twill that you like on more shafts, and so you have to be flexible and change things around. So for many of the block structures, if you add or subtract shafts, you add or subtract blocks. But twills, you have to think of a couple things. One of them is that you could have long floats. So on the left, I have a little drawdown of a straight twill on 4 shafts. So we probably woven, if you're a weaver, you probably woven a million times. But if we take that principle of taking, the definition of a twill, a slanted line, basically, you have, you drop one and pick one up, you go from 1, 2 to 2, 3. If you take the principle to A shafts, well, whoops, you have these long floats, which are really, even if you have a small set, are going to be making the fabric unstable. So what we have to do is anchor the float. So there's a couple different ways to do it, probably more than 2, but they fall into general category. One of them is to do take a regular twill, meaning that every time you lift a set of shafts, there's always the same number that come up, not the same number of shafts, but the total. So at one point you lift 3 and 2 stay down, 1 stay up, 2 stays down. And so when you do the next step, it will be the same numbering that occurs. And that's a regular twill. As you see here, there's your slanted line, but now it's got a little bit of a plain weave dot in between. You can also do it irregularly. So here it's irregular twills are called fancy twills. If you cannot describe a twill with this slashing system, ratios, if you will, then it's an irregular twill. And here I have it going all sorts of different ways. But again, you take a twill from 4 and you add on and you take down the floats. That works not only for straight twills, it works for everything. So here it's 2 more examples on a pointed twill. Going down, so and going up, there's lots of different possibilities on the web and Strickler's book for A-shafts twills. But if this works for going on to more. If you buy a 12-shaft twill, you're jumping from 4 to 12, you can use that. Now decreasing can become a little bit more complicated. And there's a couple different ways of doing it. One of them is that on the left, you have this twill, this pointed twill or bird's eye, whatever, you start out in that group of twills. And you see that it's the diamond, it's in the middle. It's anchored here by 4 shafts. And you see that it surrounds it by dotted or plain weave. That you need a shaft for that, but you can do a very nice diamond by using 4 shafts. And so the example on the right is 4 shafts. The other way to do is to find similar features that you like in a twill. On the left, it's a rather complicated, it's a 40 shafts twill that is has slanted lines going upward. And you can't do all of those complicated structures together on 4 shafts, but you can certainly get the feel or the feature of the slanted line that has more than just your straight twill. This is called the steep twill, and it's woven on 4 shafts. The other way to deal with this is to extend the motif, and I do this a lot on 4 shafts. The shaft on the example or the sample on the left is actually from the shawl that is featured on the panel today, and you see that it has again that diamond, except the diamond is a little zigzag. It was representing water, the last convergence, all the lakes around the area. And I wove that, and then later I thought, oh, well, I can't do that. I have to eliminate a lot of things going from 40 to 4. But here you see it's still a diamond without a diamond, and that's been extended 4 times. So if you count the twill lines here, it's 4 times. Then I realized that I'd done that before another scarf that actually is extended 5 times. And it's not very visible because of it's also as a colored warp, multicolored warp. But the reason I like these twills is that they reflect the light differently, so they look very, especially in a scarf that you wear, you can see the shininess of the fabric. So imitating or either imitating or extending the motif are 2 other ways to do it. Of course, there's lots of different twills and lots of different ways of doing it, but this gives you an idea of what we're going to be doing on Convergence. So there is my contact information if you need it, and I'll be glad to take any questions now if there are any.
Marcy, I wonder if you can expand on that. It's for intermediate. Let's say I'm a beginner weaver, but I've taken maybe 2 classes. I know how to warp my loom. I understand the difference between a twill and a plain weave. Can I get something out of this class, or should I wait?
Well, a little bit, there's always a discussion on who's a beginner. I mean, I've had beginners that after 1 class they could get this, because we do talk in my beginning class, we do talk about the different structures. And then I've had some that, 10 years later, they still don't want to, they probably could, but they don't want to deal with it. So if somebody wants to, they will get a handout. I guess I should have said, they will get a monographs. And so even if they don't get all the little details, they will have the drawdown, and they will have the photos of the fabrics. And so they can always go back to it later. So they do have to have some idea what twills are.
So you're going to give away one of your monographs?
I'm writing a new one.
Oh, wow. That's worth it just for that. All right, folks, remember Marcy Petrini, Up and Down the Twill Shaft Escalator. It's a 90-minute seminar, and it'll be Saturday. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Nadine Sanders, The Big Finish. This is a 3-hour seminar. It'll be Sunday in the morning, and it's July 14th. Hi, Nadine.
Hi. Well, Sunday morning is just the time to do this, because we're going to be singing and moving. And by that time at Convergence, you're going to need some exercise. I don't have any pictures to show, because the fact of the matter is I don't have anything to finish right now. But this is for anyone who weaves and doesn't know what to do when they take that item off the loom. I weave a variety of things. I do yardage for clothing, and I love to weave rugs, and I do a lot of wall hangings with a interesting odd quilting weaving / technique. And there's different ways to finish everything. There's not one solution. And the last time I taught this class, I was happy that I knew some of these weavers had been weaving a long time, and I introduced them to some ways of doing finishing to the cloth that they hadn't done yet. So I'm going to go over the ones that we're actually going to do in the class. And here's what's great about this class. You're not going to be sitting down looking at slides. We're going to be finishing fabric. And what I love is when I can finish your fabric. So people who come to the class, if they actually, we talk ahead of time, and if we can do some of these techniques with your fabric, that's the best. I do bring things in case no one else does, but this is the best way, because you get to actually see how these different finishes work with different fabrics. So the one I like to use a lot when I do clothing fabrics is called the London Shrink. And I don't know who named that, but it's a minimal way of finishing your fabric, and it doesn't involve any machines. It's like totally manual. All you need to be able to do is heat up some really hot water, and that's a minimal finishing technique. For fabric you really don't want to put in water and like immerse and swish it around a lot. It works great. The last time I taught this, we did this for somebody's blanket. They'd woven a tartan blanket. It worked great on that too. So London Shrink, don't know what that is. This is where to learn how to do it, not just what it is. The other thing I do almost always for rugs and all my wall hangings is the Turkish shrink. And that doesn't involve pouring water on, but I steam water into these weavings with a hot dry iron, and then I block them. And these days there's lots of great materials you can get at those large big box stores or your local hardware store to block with. So this is something that a lot of quilters do. And after I wove my first woven quilted wall hangings, I was like, oh, these just don't look as sharp as lots of other folks do. And I realized, well, I didn't block it. So that's another thing. So if you've never done the Turkish shrink, that's going to be something we're going to use to steam into a weaving and then block it as it dries. And then probably the most fun one, and this is the one I've taught the most all over the place. I even taught it in a cow barn at the Alaska State Fair once. That was interesting. It's walking. That's WAULKING, walking. And that word comes from Scotland. It's actually a process of hand fulling wool cloth. And here's what's interesting. I'm in need of some people to help me walk a fabric right now because we don't have a top loading washing machine with a dasher. And my neighbor thought she did, but she doesn't have a dasher. I mean, it's getting more and more hard to find washing machines to help you do that fulling. And I just love the process of it because we have a long length of fabric sewn into a circle, and we thump and rub. We sing. We don't sing in Gaelic. I have people sing songs like row, row, row your boat and spirituals and things that everybody can know and join in. And then we thump and rub. We fold that cloth to the beat as we're singing, and I'll also get my violin out. And the great thing about walking, hand finishing and fulling wool fabrics is that you can see the magic right before your eyes, because we measure things before we start, and we measure them as we're going, and then hopefully if the person who wove the fabric is there, they can say, yep, this is done, or no, I think this needs another song. So those three things we'll be doing in person, the London shrink, the Turkish shrink, and walking. And then I have some other things that I do use machines with that we'll just talk about. Everybody will receive a handout. And hopefully some of you who attend this seminar will bring your fabric, and we'll actually be doing the finishing on your fabrics. So that's what I have.
That is so exciting. I've never seen a walking in person. I've just seen videos. That would be so cool to be part of that.
Well, everyone's welcome. You don't even have to be a weaver to come to this. You could be a knitter or someone else, because finishing techniques go from different, it's not just for weavers, but people who work with other fabric in other ways in textiles.
This is a good one for beginners. If you're one of those people who think, I just need the basic stuff, this would be great, as well for somebody advanced, because everybody needs to know how to do a finish. Thank you, Nadine. I appreciate it. The Big Finish, it's a 3-hour seminar. It's Sunday. You will see walking if you've never seen it in person. Next up, we have Margaret Stump. Margaret is doing Introduction to Pin Loom Weaving. Learn to use a pin loom and make a flat rat. It's a 3-hour seminar, and it's Friday afternoon. All right, Margaret, tell me why I want to make a flat rat.
That's a reasonably good question. Basically, the flat rat, and I found my one, they have a tendency to sneak away into books and so forth, is
oh my gosh, he's so cute.
Either insanely cute or insanely creepy use of a pin loom. And it really is intended to be an introduction to pin loom weaving. So my plan is to have everything people need to come in, and within that seminar period, learn to weave on this small and what I consider extraordinarily delightful small loom. One note, if people are interested, they certainly can come in, and if they have their own loom, there's several popular models being sold these days, including the Shacked Spindle Zoom Loom. If they have their own, I encourage people to bring their own things because that's what they're going to be using at home. But whatever loom it is, whatever pin loom it is, they all work exactly the same. And the reason we're doing a flat rat is because it will allow us to make one 4x4 piece of cloth, as well as we'll be making a couple 2x2 pieces of cloth for his little head and his little tummy. And I'm going to turn on some pictures just so hopefully you can see something a little better. And
while you're doing that, I just want to remind everybody that if you don't have a loom and you see one that that you've brought, that Margaret's brought, and you really like it, most likely it'll be in the vendor hall.
I will be bringing some Zoom looms, and they certainly may be there. And I will have a number of examples. This is unfortunately thrilling to me to find that my photos are not coming up in my photo thingy. They should be here, but that would be asking fate to work out properly. None of my photos.
I don't know. You've done a great job with this. Somebody said, can we change the color and say it's a flat cat or maybe a flat hamster?
Oh, totally. And in fact, I've had several requests, and hopefully by next summer, I'll follow through on this for an entire roadkill menagerie. So that, I mean, if you think a flat rat is cool, what about a flat opossum? Where's the flat raccoon?
There you go.
But keep in mind, this is intended to be basically your gateway drug into pin loom weaving, so that the whole point is that the squares you make on a pin loom are a little bit, in one person's words, like Legos. They are small enough that you can literally turn them into anything. Really
the pin loom has just taken off. A lot of it thanks to you, Margaret, with your wonderful books. But you really can make, I mean, it used to be, okay, I'll make a granny square bag or something, but not anymore. You really have shown, and other artists too, I don't want to cut anybody out.
No,
but this is a great way to learn how to make something with a pin loom and take it further. So what a wonderful, and it's good for beginners, isn't it?
It's a great place to start. The weirdest thing about pin looms is that figuring out how one actually turns those windings of yarn into that piece of fabric can be a struggle just sitting by yourself at home. So coming in and sitting in a class with others, I think it happens very quickly, so that we will, as I say, create enough fabric to make our flat rat. And I'm just going to point out, and it kind of goes up incrementally. So, you know, you have a few more, and we talk about how to make stripes on the pin loom, which is real easy, of course. You can end up with something a little bit larger and also cute. Or just continue making squares and putting them together, and suddenly, you know, one has a blanket. It's a baby blanket or a toddler blanket or something really large. Part of the issue is that there's so much fun to make that you can end up finding yourself with many, many more squares than you ever expected in the first place. That's certainly been my experience.
Well, this is a great class to start. If you're not sure what you want to get into in weaving, this is a perfect place to start. Thank you, Margaret. And by the way, I love the little flat rack. I think he's cute. Introduction to pin loom weaving. Learn to use a pin loom and make a flat rat or any other critter that you would like. It's a 3-hour seminar. It's Friday afternoon, July the 12th. Thank you, Margaret. Next up, Myra Chang Thompson. Myra is teaching the role of Churro sheep and its fiber in Spanish colonial life and trade. This is a 90-minute seminar. It is Saturday morning. Good morning, Myra. Oh, your sound's off, Myra. Still off. You hit it twice. There
Okay,
you go.
here we go. I'd like to share my screen with you,
Okay.
and I have the guest of honor, the Churro sheep. The whole history of the Churro sheep in the New World is rather fascinating. They were sent over with the Spanish colonial people more than 400 years ago. They took a 1,200-mile trip up from Veracruz, Mexico, and Mexico City to Santa Fe, up through El Camino Real, the Royal Road of the interior. In 1598, Juan de Oñate came with a huge number of settlers and caravans consisting of about 32 wagons hauled by 8 mules apiece, averaging about 4,000 pounds of freight. So this was a big undertaking. Now, they also brought cattle, Churro sheep, goats, burros, and chickens that they used along the way up the journey for food and other things. So the churros were especially important because they provided the travelers with not only food, but a way to keep warm. The churros were used for their neat fleece, and in Spanish colonial times, they provided new raw materials, and there were knit churro socks that were traded in Mexico's silver mines. They also began a rich textile trade. Hadgas, a combination of utility fabric, tarp, blanket, rug, or tent, were woven along the Rio Grande. There's one right behind me. It's a plaid woven 4-shaft twill. There must have been some Scottish people in the mix somewhere. They were woven from natural colored fleece. They were sold, traded and bartered. Another churro Hadga developed, a Hadga fina, which was a finer textile, usually woven in a 4-shaft bird's eye twill. But back to the churro sheep. They were brought by Don Juan de Oñate more than 400 years ago, where they have endured and remained very much endeared. The Navajo consider them in a saying that goes like this: sheep is life, and they're talking about the churro. They're considered a rare and primitive breed. They have a long staple of a protective top coat and a soft undercoat. In the picture, you see one of the rams with the 4 horns. It's not real common, but it does occur. They're very well suited to the extremes of the southwestern United States climate. Some rams have 4 fully developed horns, as you see here. They're highly resistant to disease, and they're just a hardy little sheep. They need no pampering, although they do respond well to humanness to survive. The ewes lamb readily and are extremely protective of their young. Twins or triplets are not uncommon, and the meat is flavorful and has a low fat content. So the churro sheep has played an incredibly important part of the development of the Spanish Empire, and in more recent times in the Navajo blanket trade. I have in my lap a skein of churro wool that was dyed with indigo that came from northern New Mexico. And as I said, the picture in the original slide announcing me has this Hadga woven of churro wool. The wool was incredibly fun to work with. It is not a really soft next to the skin kind of fabric, but it would make a wonderful blanket, a wonderful poncho. I've seen them used as rugs and so on. So I think that the role of the churro just needs to be celebrated. It is just a unique breed of sheep. Some of the lambs have incredibly soft, unlike the adults, down, and it's very easily spun, and they're readily available. There are breeders across the country and in Canada.
Hey, Myra, will you
Yeah.
have samples of the wool there when you talk?
I have a skein of it right here. It's
But will you have it at the talk?
oh yes, absolutely.
good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, and I'll have some raw fleece and some finished fleece as well, and some
That'll
spun.
be good. That'll be great. Thank you so much. I think everybody's a little curious about the Churro sheep. There's such a history there. And this will be a great talk. Thank you, Myra. Now,
You're
this
very
is the
welcome.
role of Churro sheep and its fiber in Spanish colonial life and trade. It's a 90-minute seminar, and it's Saturday morning, July 13th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Barbara Cabral.
I apologize for the wrong picture, everyone. This was added last minute.
Introduction to the Kumar Hall. It's an ECOT. It's a 2-day workshop, which I probably pronounced it really badly, but I'll let Barbara, when she turns on her sound, tell you all about it. There you go. There you go.
Turned it on and off. I'm
All
gonna
right.
go right to this. Oh dear.
Hey, Barbara, how are you?
Good.
So how do you pronounce that? Now that
Khmer Hole.
really? Oh, Kabir Hole. All right.
So this is going to go pretty quickly. We do a lot in the workshop. First, becoming familiar with the Khmer Empire. It's basically they're the finest weavers in the world, as far as I'm concerned. The pictorial wall hangings, they're like the epitome of the Khmer hole, but it's done on a 2-1 twill. We're also just going to discuss other weave structures that can be done. So the weaving itself is very simple, so it can be done by beginners. Traditionally, it was woven with silk, but students can use tencel or other natural fibers that can be dyed. The Khmer Empire is the inspiration for today's textiles. We'll look at some parts of Cambodia and Thailand where the Khmer people were and still are today. The Khmer language is spoken and the weaving is done in parts of Thailand and Cambodia. The Samput hole or ikat wrapped skirt is part of the traditional garb worn at weddings and worn at other occasions. This is a skirt that I have, and we're going to be able to look at a number of different textiles. I spent a lot of time in Cambodia, over 4 different trips, and going to Angkor Wat and other monuments. You can see that there's carvings. A lot of the inspiration for today's textiles come from antique work. The main focus of this is going to be learning how to tie the hole. Sometimes it's tied and untied and re-dyed. So there's a couple of different methods that can be used for winding the weft, and that gets a little complicated to understand at first, but if you just follow along, it's really not a difficult concept. We also talk about how to transfer from the warping pegs onto a frame. The frames that are used can be a picture frame, or they can be a take-apart frame.
Now, I understand that you're going to send directions on how to put together this frame, right?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay, and it's pretty easy to figure
Yeah.
out, and people can put it in their suitcase, right?
Right. So it's
Oh,
easy
that'd
to
be great.
travel with. Yeah. And it's real adaptable. You can use different warping pegs or Japanese tying stands to wind the wefts. Students will typically make patterns like this that are 3 to 5 pattern rows. They can be combined with other stripes to make simple things. And as they gain more understanding, then we'll go back and look at more slides and more textiles, and then really begin to understand how the Cambodians did this, or the Khmer weavers. Probably won't get into anything this complex. Some of these are really amazing. Today, modern Cambodian textiles offer some inspiration and design. These are like 2 or 3 color patterns and ones that students could do. This was a simple shades of indigo. And so this was tied and then undyed for the last dyeing. So sometimes it's tied and re-dyed. But here's another picture of the frame. 12 by 18 works real well for workshops. If you have a picture frame or
Barbara,
something that's
Are
bigger,
you
that's
sharing
fine.
are you sharing a picture right now? Because we're not seeing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Um,
Go to the share screen. It doesn't look like it was selected.
oh dear.
There we go.
Well, that was a lot of talking about. Oh dear. But anyway, there's a lot of, you want to go back at all, or we'll go real quick here so you can see. But this is the type of thing that the students will be doing, not
Oh, wow.
terribly involved patterns, but with 3 to 5 pattern rows, you can get some interesting patterns. And there we go. There's some more student work with the ones I was saying you could use. You can use a white as a base, or you can use a bright color and over dye it. And you can combine the simple patterns along with some stripes or some solid backgrounds and get a lot of use out of it. Then this is the more complicated Khmer weaving that we'll be studying. And after you've done the workshop, you can look at this and you can begin to understand how it's done. I can't say that you're going to be able to duplicate it, but it's pretty amazing work. And there's our Cambodian lady with a very complicated, and this is where frames are really useful when you get into a lot of rows, then the winding pegs are just not enough area to tie on. But I really love this. This was just shades of indigo after it's tied and dyed the first time with the blue, then the blue ties are unwrapped and it's dyed again in indigo to give you the lighter blue. So you're only untying, you're not putting it back on and retying it.
Now, will you be doing dyeing in class?
No, this is strictly understanding the process and doing the tying. So they'll go
Okay.
home with samples that are ready to, and that's why you need a fiber that you're comfortable with dyeing.
Okay. Okay, can you go back and show that frame? Now, this is the frame you're talking about. And that one is just a picture frame, isn't it?
Right, that's the stretcher bars. There's 12-inch on the side and 18-inch on the bottom.
Okay.
And
I don't want to scare
couple-
people off from this workshop because they think they don't have this particular frame. And it looks like it's very easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, just a couple of dowel rods, and worst comes to worst, even if you can just do it on a picture frames work great, but it's just
Okay.
easier to travel with something you can take apart. And it's flexible. You can start the pattern and then you can go back and work in any area. We'll graph a pattern, but you can also change the pattern as you go. And this shows how it was dyed with yellow first, and then over dyed again after retying with the blue. So it's kind of like Ukrainian Easter eggs, where we will talk about color and how you plan the different layers. So it's pretty interesting process, but it's also very effective with just a single color. And I have some great textiles, but also some photos and ways that you can adapt, take a part of a pattern from a textile and reproduce it, make a graph and continue on. A lot of videos of actual Khmer weavers I have, and I'll share those. And you can see here on the right, the dyed threads. So these are tied and dyed, and then when they're woven, the pattern appears. So it's a mystery, but it does work. And the students quickly learn to do the ties, and they're very comfortable with it. So it's a very relaxed workshop, and students of all levels and ages have been successful with this.
Well, ECOT is kind of like magic, so that'll be
Yes,
good.
yes. So it's a little bit more complicated in some ways because of the detail, but it can also be done in simpler patterns. So it doesn't have to be real complicated. So I hope you come to Convergence and learn more.
Thank you, Barb. I appreciate that. This is going to be a 2-day workshop. It'll be Saturday, July 13th. And it'll be at Convergence. And again, if you have any questions, A lot of the information is online for all of these about the materials you need to bring. And for this one especially, I don't want people to get scared about that loom. It's very simple and easy to make. And Barb will send you the directions for that. Tons of sessions to choose from. Hopefully these programs are helping you decide which one you want to attend. We'll have over 150 seminars and workshops, everything from 90 minutes. We heard of several of those today, 3-hour seminars, 1, 2, and 3-day workshops. And don't forget, if you're going to take a class, it probably will make sense that you get the CVP. You get 25% off of your Convergence value with the Convergence value package. And with it, you get the lovely bag. You get to go to the keynote. You go to the fashion show. So check into that. You may want to get the CVP. You do have to have a membership to take a class, though. Just remember that. Registration is open. weavespindye.org/sessions. You can see all the classes, read the descriptions. You should have gotten your registration book already in the mail. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, July 11th through the 17th in Wichita, Kansas, weavespindye.org. Join today and let's get you signed up for it. And just remember, you got to do them in the right order. You got to join, then do your CVP, then you can order your classes and get the discount. We've had some confusion about that. So thank you all very much. And we look forward to seeing you later on this week with more descriptions of classes.